Shalom, this is Yair Davidiy speaking to you from the land of Israel. Today we are continuing our discussion concerning Gog and Magog. The story of Gog and Magog is found in the book of Ezekiel, chapters 38 and 39. But it builds on other biblical books and it supplements the prophecies found in them. Originally we had intended this series of talks to concentrate on Gog and Magog and to give you different viewpoints concerning the correct interpretation of this subject, because we ourselves have no firm opinion on the issue. It doesn't really concern us. We study the whereabouts of lost tribes, and we believe we have found them. We certainly have found them to be amongst Western nations. And that is where the lost tribes are to be found. How many of them are, what proportion they are of the people living there, that's another story. But that is where the lost tribes are, according to the Bible, according to secular evidence. Lost tribes are amongst Western peoples. And proof of this is found in biblical prophecy. Biblical prophecy concerning the future has additional details that flesh out our findings, add to them, supplement them, add another perspective to them. But they are not essential to the major evidence, to the evidence that we use to prove where the lost tribes are. They give the characteristics of lost tribes, and we show how these characteristics apply to certain nations, not to others. And that is what the Bible tells us. The lost tribes are amongst Western nations. It also tells us what will happen in the end times, and that is what we are talking about now. Talking about prophecies concerning Gog and Magog. This present talk will use sources that we obtained from a number of different books, different articles and so on, but we will concentrate here upon one book in particular. This work by Rabbi Eiselman, Rabbi Moshe Eiselman, and that is the work that we use for the present talk. All the sources that we found in it are pertinent to the present talk, and this is what we have. We're concerned with the Gog and Magog. The story of Gog and Magog is found in Ezekiel 38 and 39. And Midrash Tanhuma says that Gog and Magog in Gematria and Numerology numbers 70 in Hebrew letters. And the 70 represents the 70 nations of the earth. In Genesis chapter 10, we find all of the nations of the earth, of the sons of Noah, after the flood. The sons of Noah repopulated the land, so all peoples of the earth descend from the descendants of Noah. There's a list of them in Genesis 10. There are 70 altogether. So the 70 nations represent the 7 major divisions of mankind. And Gog and Magog in the Gematria has the same number as these nations, as Gog and Magog has the number 70, representing the 70 nations. We don't usually go into numerology or Gematria, but in this case it is worth noting. Midrash in Yalkut Shimoni, 176 on Daniel, says that the 4 kings, that 4 kingdoms, says that there were 4 kingdoms, one after the other, that oppressed the Israelite nation. In the end times, these 4 kingdoms will unite together, and they will come together with the forces of Gog and Magog to war against Israel. Another Midrash, Midrash Tehillim, to Psalms 118, says that Gog and Magog is part of a series of 3 wars that will be fought against the Israelites in the end times. Gog and Magog, the prophecies according to this Midrash, prophecies of Gog and Magog, refer to 2 of the 3 wars, whereas the 3rd war is found in Zechariah chapter 14, which incidentally describes the future capture of Jerusalem. And also we find in the books of Ezekiel and Zechariah, Joel and Daniel, other prophecies that interlock with the prophecies of Ezekiel and add substance to them, or add more details on certain issues. And Ezekiel in chapters 38 and 39, he describes Israel as a people who have come in from exile, have been ingathered. They are living peacefully, they are prosperous, they follow agricultural and commercial pursuits. And the Gog and Magog attack them, wishing to take their spoils from them, to take their oxen and their silver and their gold and their livestock and so on. So in modern terms, this could reflect the outcome of what is happening in some areas now, what could happen in the future: massive economic collapse of certain nations, ecological disasters, that is climate change, earthquakes, who knows what, famine, a lack of water pollution, that cause certain areas to be uninhabitable. And millions, hundreds of millions of people could suddenly need to get up and move, or starve, or perish altogether where they are. They may come up to the Israelite nation and take their nation. Now, this present-day Israelite nation has about 9 million people. About 7 of them are Jewish, and it's a small country. But the prophecies of Gog and Magog could be referring to the area of present-day Judah, that is the state of Israel, and the areas of the lost 10 tribes who will reunite with Judah. And according to certain sources, rabbinical sources and traditions, the land of Israel, the holiness of the land of Israel will spread abroad, will spread out. And we have quoted from the Hat himself, who's a great rabbi, and he, based on the sources that he understood, he said that the holiness of the land of Israel will spread to the Atlantic seacoast, will spread out to the British Isles. The British Isles and the coastal area of the Atlantic, European Atlantic, will be part of the land of Israel, and by extension we may also, or maybe also possible to include in that equation, North America. And it could be that places in Asia, or places who knows where, will become uninhabitable for all kinds of reasons. We don't know what will happen, but it could happen. Iran could try and develop some type of nuclear power point, or Korea. It could blow up, or could cause damage so that people cannot live in that area anymore. So millions of people have to get up and come and go somewhere. So they might want to go to North America, or they might want to take away from the North Americans or from the Israelite nations what they already have. And the silver and gold could be, in the biblical terms, could represent the international monetary system, the international economic set-up, that they may blame Western peoples from using the present set-up to subjugate them, to exploit them. And they may decide that they want to come and take the lands and take away everything that exists in the West and take it over altogether. Now this is far-fetched, perhaps, but it could happen. It is within the borderlines of feasibility, and it would also fit the biblical description of what will happen in the future. And Maimonides and other commentators, they mention that you can speculate to an unlimited degree about how these things will happen and what will come about them. And he advises not to do so, not to spend too much time on these issues. So we don't. But it's worthwhile knowing something about them and seeing some feasibility in what is predicted, because sometimes these things do come to pass. And we also have a peradventuration in history, as if to say, we have an end time scenario when certain factors will come into play. But before we get to the end time scenario, there are, as if to say, practice runs. Things that people are going through the motions, or the same characters, or the same scenarios are being played out in different ways over and over again, until we get to the final scene, to the final production, where everything falls into place. So that even now, according to this understanding, but when we look at what existed at the present, we may get some idea of what happens in the past, or what will happen in the future. Also, according to rabbinical sources, the Messiah, the son of Joseph, will also play a role in the wars of Gog and Magog. He, according to some sources, will be killed in them. According to other sources, we pray and we try and do atonement that he will remain alive. but he will be involved according to these sources, and we should elaborate. We have a Messiah, son of David, and the Messiah, son of Joseph. The Messiah, son of David, is a descendant of David. Is also mentioned in some detail in Ezekiel. In the end times, he will rule over all of Israel, over the lost 10 tribes, when they reunite, as explained in Ezekiel 37, and over Judah, and he will be descendant of Judah. He will be descendant of David, will be descendant of David. Messiah, son of David, will be descendant from David. And he will be the main of the Messiah. And belief in this Messiah is obligatory according to Jewish law. Whereas Mashiach ben Yosef, that is the Messiah, son of Joseph, is what you could say a later tradition, or tradition that was more developed or came more into prominence in the religious consciousness in later times. And Lord, if someone does not agree with him, does not agree in his existence, or is speculative about it, or he's doubtful about him, so he's not, that's his privilege. You can take it or leave it to some degree. But most religious authorities, rabbis and so on, in these days too, believe that it will be such a person. So the major commentaries, according to the Malbim, the Mashiach ben Yosef, will lead the 10 tribes when they come back. Others don't necessarily mention the lost 10 tribes, but it is implied. He is described as the descendant of Ephraim, and he will bring the Israelites back. He will bring the Israelites back to their land. He will rebuild the temple. He will, according to one source, he will tell the Israelites what tribe they belong to. According to another source, Mashiach ben David will do this. But this will happen, and in this last period, everyone will know which tribe and which tribal family within the tribe they belong to. This will be made known to all of them. See Perki Haikalos, Midrash 39:1. Another point worth mentioning is that according to Midrash Vayikra Rabbah 27:11, it says that Gog and Magog will want to wage war against God Almighty. They will want to destroy the Israelite nation. They will realize that God Almighty is, as if to say, protecting or guiding or watching over the Israelite nation, and in order to get at the Israelite nation, they will wage war against him. So in the Midrash, they say, we understand this to mean that they will have an atheistic ideology, motivation. So we're motivated by atheism. Today, the only major country in the world that really has atheism as its ideology is China. In the early Middle Ages, there was, and before then, there was an area in northern Korea and also in southern China, in that region, which was actually called Gog. And there are indications that Gog and Magog, even though they represent most of the nations of the earth at that time, the time the wars take place, they will be nations, recognizable nations in their own right. They will be the leader of these anti-Israelite forces, and they could represent a combination of Korea, China and Japan getting together and deciding to establish their rightful place under the sun, as if to say. Rabbi, this is the direction we lean towards, and we'll speak about it another time. It is a possibility, a feasibility. It is a reality that could happen. Rabbi Moshe Eiserman, whom we quoted, he seems to incline towards another viewpoint, that from the Caucasus region, that is where Gog will emerge, from the region of the Caucasus of southern Russia. And indeed, in what's now Georgia, there was a province, an important province, or even a country in its own right, known as Goguryne. So some identify Gog with this area. So these are possibilities. We will live and see, God willing. But it's worthwhile knowing what the possibilities are and what the prophets do say, and also what the sources say, because it gives us insights, it gives us more of a depth, more of a perspective on all of Scripture, knowing these things, or having a general idea of as to how they are presented. May the Lord God of Israel bless you. Thank you.